Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday Inspiration. For those of you who don't know me, Dr. Linda Marquez Goodine here, and I'm excited to be here with you. I'm going solo today. Well, not really solo. I do have an amazing guest, but first of all, Happy New Year. I totally forgot. The last episode we did do was on setting New Year's resolutions, goal setting, and so forth. But today, we are going to talk about, we've been getting this requested a lot on plant medicines. We did have someone last time who talked a lot more about Cambo. This is all going to be about ayahuasca. And I have the perfect person that is going to share just what happened. What happened in the jungle. So anyways, I'm going to bring her on. We're going to chat, and we're going to open it up for questions. And I can't wait for you to meet this gorgeous, amazing woman. So hi, Christy.
Hi, Linda.
How are you, sweetie? We were talking a little bit, before we got on here, but how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. What an amazing way to start out 2021. I'm so excited.
Right? I mean, 2020 was still a good year for us. Maybe not for a lot of people, but it's kind of been ingrained in us now for such a long time, especially working with plant medicines, that you make every situation whatever it is. You choose to take the good and choose to do it, take it as a learning process. So, but I'm excited that it's 2021. We have you, and I want you to just tell people a little bit about who you are. And it's just so, I love how God and the universe works, how we even met.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name is Christy. I'm 34. I was introduced to the idea of ayahuasca about the time my son was about 3 months old. So in 2012, when I first started working with plants, genuinely was, I had a really hard time conceiving. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is caused a storm of hormone problems within me, and I wasn't able to conceive. And I was looking at my symptoms. I didn't even really know what was wrong with me at the time, and then just kind of self-diagnosed. Started taking chaseberry tree, Vitex, saw palmetto, and 6 to 8 months later, my menstrual cycle resumed after being absent for a year, and I was able to conceive my son. And during that time, I just felt so connected, and I just felt like I was getting like this message from spirit of, this next part of my journey in life, and just carrying this life inside of me, and just really like ready to like up my game, and just being able to step into motherhood in a graceful way. And just, so that began my journey into just wanting to better myself so I could be the best version of me for my son. And then he was 3 months old, and I was breastfeeding him on the couch, and I saw the DMT Spirit Molecule documentary on Netflix, and the idea of DMT and shamanism. I just started Googling it, and I was like, how have I never heard of this before? And I made up my mind at that moment, okay, when he gets older, I'm going to the jungle. And I didn't know how it was going to happen or how I was going to come with the money for it. And, it just manifested in a beautiful way. I got an amazing job cocktail waitressing in Vegas, which, that can be a very dense energy environment, but the money was good. And I just decided in the later part of 2016 that I was ready to go, and came up with the money, and went to Spirit Quest, and which is where I met you, which was so amazing because of all the people in the world that go to this retreat. You live 45 minutes away from me, and it was my first time being out of the country by myself without my father. And so it was a big girl move at 30 years old to travel out of the country, leaving my small child at home with my parents, and to make that trek and that Spirit Quest was.
I remember that, and I was going back because my first trip to the jungle was in 2015, as I was talking to my husband, David, and I'm like, when did we go? Because I'm pulling out all my journals. So like I have tons of journals. And whenever I work with medicine, I mean, I'm journaling all the time. I know you're a big journaler as well, especially when we work with medicine, because just what comes out of your mind and just creativity and even what you're thinking, you're like, oh my gosh, did I think that? Really? Am I thinking that? You jot a lot down. But um, yeah, when we did an introduction, the group introduction of all the people, because that was one of the things that we do. It was just like, oh my gosh, she like lives close to us, and that was at the time. In 2015, we were still in California, living full time, my husband and I, and our kids. After our 2015 ceremony, we made the decision to leave California. That's how profound the medicine is. So that was like a big move for us to leave everything that we knew in Southern California to move to Lake Havasu, Arizona. And it was Christmas Day of 2015. And then the following year is when when we met. So, I mean, it's just so beautiful how things just transpire. So what was really what was the calling? Because, with ayahuasca, people say, I had a calling. What was your calling? What was it like made you like you knew that you knew that you knew in your heart that you had?
Yeah, gosh, I almost get teary thinking about it. I just was I lived my whole life, with depression and anxiety and anger, not so much depression as anger. I just was very angry all the time. And once I had my son, a lot of that had subsided. And I told myself if I ever went back to feeling the way that I used to before I had my son, that I would go on medication, because I didn't know I could be as happy as I was when I was pregnant. Just those hormones, whatever was inside of me, I just didn't know you could be so happy and feel so fulfilled. And I started to lose a little bit of that as he was getting older, and I was like, okay, something's got to happen, because I did not want to go on medication, and I just wanted to be the best version of myself. And I was still struggling with having healthy relationships and alcoholism, working in Vegas, and being in that night life environment. It just kind of comes with the territory. And and I was more scared of what my life was going to be like if I didn't go down this road and sit in with ayahuasca than actually going into ceremony, because I know, there's a lot of trepidation and fear surrounding what can happen in ceremony, but I was more scared of what was going to happen if I didn't try.
I know, and that's the scary part. Like when you go, I mean, we worked with an amazing shaman, and I know both of us have worked with multiple shamans. I've worked with at least, I'm trying to count now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably like 7 of them. And we had, I mean, the collectiveness of the shamans that we worked with at Spirit Quest of experience was over 100 years. The husband, the wife, the son, John Howard. I mean, just John Robert by himself, 50 some years of, practicing this. So it was just amazing, but you're right. It was just like, it was scary because I'm such a control freak and a type A personality and very regimented about things. And I want to know, and I want to plan for things to unfold. But when we got there, all that was thrown out the window. It's just, go in there, and the work that you do is not always, you go with an intention of what you want to work on, but sometimes, or what you want to manifest. And a lot of people want to manifest things, relationships, jobs, money, whatever, happiness. And they don't always walk out with that. So they walk out more with what the medicine, is going to work with them. So how would you describe, what ayahuasca is for those people that don't know what it is?
Well, it's an entheogen, right? It's not a psychedelic, or it's not a hallucinogen, it's an entheogen, which an entheogen is a compound compound of plant origin that creates non-ordinary or mystical states of consciousness that produces a spiritual experience. Remind me of your question again. Sorry, I want to answer.
That's what ayahuasca was, because a lot of people, they think it's
like how it's made, or.
Well, yeah, we can get into that because we got to make it. We did.
We did.
That was really cool. And, but the way with ayahuasca, it's made from the vine and the shrub, because people can get it online, but it's like you're not getting the real thing, or you have to respect the plant, the medicine, because it can kick your butt,
And with it, speaking about intention is everything. So when you are purchasing ayahuasca off the dark net from people who have made it for purposes of, generating income for themselves, you don't know their intention, the prayers that are put into the ayahuasca, as they're brewing it. We were there, we got to put our prayers into it, and blow our mapacho smoke prayers over the brew. And so that, and if you drink it by yourself, not guided by someone with an immense amount of training and experience, you're just putting yourself out there and opening yourself up and putting yourself in a very vulnerable situation, and anything can come in. And with the curanderos, the shamans, they have been taught with the plants in their training these songs to sing that guide you through your experience. This is why you also don't want to try to avoid shamans that play recorded music, because the plants tell the curanderos which songs to sing at just the right time to move certain energies and spirits through the room. And just listening to recorded music or having that experience by yourself it's very dangerous.
Yeah. And the thing with ayahuasca too, you actually have to have the plant, the actually shrub and the vine. You just can't have one. So you don't know what you're getting on the internet. We were working with the combination of both. So because the vine is what contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor that allows the body to actually absorb the DMT that comes from the leaves. So without it, you would get no effect from the DMT from the ayahuasca. So that's another reason why you have to work with a reputable shaman. And why I think, that's why we went to the jungle, that's where we went to Peru, specifically Spirit Quest. And we went there because we had the intention of going to a retreating from our lives as we knew them, and having the intention of coming back a different human being. So do you recall getting ready? So we spoke a little bit before, and I said, Christy, do you remember when we were preparing for this, for the retreat, what we had to do? So do you want to kind of share a little bit, you remember what we did? We had to do kind of the steps that lead us there. One, you get the calling, it's just like you get a calling, and, you had your calling. My husband, when he had his calling, he calls me on the phone and he tells me, and I hung up on him because I'm like, I'm not going to go and do, I'm thinking the worst case scenario. Oh my gosh, what is this? That there are drugs and people are doing orgies, and, here I'm thinking the worst thing. And I hung up on him, and he was on the road, and I didn't talk to him, take his calls for 2 days. I'm like, he flipped his rocker or something.
I can't tell you how many times people have told me, oh, are you going to the general to have an orgy? I'm like, it is so the opposite. You have to be celibate for as long before, during, and after. It's a very reverent, experience.
Exactly.
And and part of the preparation is the diet, the dieta. No processed sugar, no oils, no red meat. Eat as plant-based and organic as possible. no social media, no violent movies, and
No
you know,
coffee.
no coffee, which is so hard for everyone. No
No,
salt.
no
Yeah.
intimacy, no sex, you know, I'm like,
Mhm.
what?
Yeah, and the idea and the purpose of that, right, is to empty your cup so that it can be filled back up again. So you just really want to resensitize yourself, you know, and just be as still and peaceful as possible to allow space within your body to work with the plant medicine.
Mhm.
Oh, and one more thing I wanted to add as far as ordering it online or sitting with, you know, a shaman that you're not sure is reputable, is they can mix other plants into the brew. Most curanderos I work with just do the vine and the chacruna, but there's other plants that people can mix in that can cause heavier, darker experiences, which there's a time and a place for those medicines, but not for first timers, and
Yeah,
definitely not by yourself, ever.
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about intention, because, you know, intention is really, because that's what ayahuasca doing, you know, working with it. It's really about your intention. And, you know, how would you, what kind of guidelines do you think you would give a person to create a positive intention?
Sure. Yeah. So what Don Howard taught us was there's 3 reasons to come to the medicine and ceremony: for medicinal purposes, to be healed, to reach higher levels of consciousness and awareness, to expand, you know, and for healing of life traumas, you know, and sometimes usually one of those becomes all 3. Yeah. So if there's just a particular place, you know, you've come to in life where you get stuck, or something that's blocking you from being the best version of yourself, you know, whether that's addiction, you know, self-love, you know, traumas from childhood, which so many of us, you know, have had. Yeah, just different things that are stopping us from being the best versions of ourselves, you know, or to be a better, you know, partner, mother, father, sister, brother, child, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a very profound medicine here. Uh, Marina's comments about, you know, we call her the grandmother medicine. I've grown and learned so much in my ceremonies with her. Yeah, me too. And we're definitely going to answer your question, Samantha. But what led you to that, though? What led you to go? I'm so curious about this. Is you know, we'll even tell you where exactly we went. I know they're closed right now, and I believe in April they're opening up their registration again, because they did close. And my husband is getting a calling to return this year, so that's his intention. I'm not feeling in my mind yet that my spirit is not telling me you need to go quite yet. I don't have that in my goals for this year. I do have some other goals as far as plant medicines, but I think once you're there, you know, once you have the calling, you start preparing, right? And like the dieta that you talked about, and you also start working on your intention, what you talked about. One of the things that a lot of people do prior to going to working with the medicine is they're reading up and watching all these videos on people's experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you think as far as that goes? Because that's their experience, right? Some people
Mm-hmm.
have beautiful experiences. Some people have horrific experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So what would you tell that person?
Yeah, I would try to get firsthand accounts from people if you can, and maybe try to avoid, you know, watching too much of the, you know, the documentaries. I did watch some before I went, and some of them looked really terrifying, you know, which it does take a lot of courage and bravery to make that trek anyways, you know. And I see a lot of people show up for their first time. There's all this anxiety, and they're like so scared that they're going to lose their mind and freak out, you know. And I'm not going to say that doesn't ever happen, but in my experience, most people that come in for their first time, she brings you in pretty gently. You know, it wasn't till my 13th ceremony I really lost my cool, and thank goodness I was surrounded by a group of highly trained people that were able to take me outside of the room and chant to me and bring me back into my body a little bit, because it was really rough. And you know, those rough experiences are for a reason, you know, and mine was I was avoiding my past, and you know, and coming out of that, I almost quit that night. My 13th ceremony, I was like, I am never doing this again. Yeah. And the next day, you know, I talked to the curandero, and he's like, yeah, you're avoiding your past. You know, right when he started chanting and the chants got deep and everyone was getting ready to do some good work in ceremony, I stood up and yelled at him to stop. And that was me. I'm like, oh, this is too scary. I don't want to go deep inside. I want to avoid my work right now. And there just was no getting out of it other than going through it. And so I decided to stay for the following night, and I went in shaking. I was so scared because I was like, I do not want to relive that. And, you know, ayahuasca came to me, and she like gifted me like my center. It was like a box. It was like inside of me. And she said, okay, you're never going to have to go through that again as long as you stay on your path. And that next night, I had the most beautiful ceremony that I've ever had. It was a women's circle, and it was just so much gifts and peace and grace that I was gifted. So it just proves, just like everything else in life, just when you think you can't take any more, you just ride it out and get over that hump. And then the gifts and the rewards are just on the other side. You just don't give up. And how much courage and bravery is rewarded. So yeah, just you know, getting too much in your head and you know, watching other people's experiences that you're not close with. I wouldn't get too much in that. Just talk to, you know, find people like yourself or me, or, you know, and so when you have the calling, people just come into your field and you're like, okay, I can ask them, you know, it's just how it works, and get some advice and guidance that way. And, you know, when you're preparing, just journal what you're feeling, what you're going through, why you're going, what your fears are, and what your intentions are. I mean, it could be pages long, and then you can kind of start getting it down to just little phrases like, okay, my intention is self-love, you know, healing of my traumas. Yeah, just simple short phrases that really can encompass so much.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, kind of, you will get, the calling will come up in a way that will totally blow your mind. It's not even expected. Yes, it's so easily, like nowadays, like on social media, as soon as you Google something, you're going to get like, oh, all these Facebook ads in regards to something, right? So let's say you do that with ayahuasca. It's not going to show up that way. It's going to show up in such a different way. And you ask God, the universe, show me in a way that it's my time to go work with this, and it'll show up in such a way. One of my friends, she had her second calling. She was in a store with her partner, and there was a conversation going on, and she wasn't even in her city, not even in her state. And there's someone that was talking about, she heard the word ayahuasca. We're like, what? And she hadn't even been talking about it or anything, but that had shown up, you know, and it was like a calling. And then sometimes we think that we're supposed to go, but we're not supposed to go. I remember, I want to say, gosh, I don't recall if it was the first one or the second trip to Peru, but I remember going back to work with the medicine again with a different shaman, but I wasn't supposed to be there. And I'm there, and the medicine, like I'm taking it, and then we can share with people, you know, what happens during this with visions and purges and so forth. But to me, the medicine showed me, what the hell are you doing here? Why are you here? And like, because I wanted to be a better version of me. It's like, it was kind of like, didn't I give you enough work to work on while you were working with Don Howard? our shaman. And it was like a slap in the face, and bam, as soon as I heard that, all the effects of what people get when they go and partake of the medicine just disappeared. And for those people, like when you partake of this, it can last like up to 5 hours because people are seeing visions and they're purging and so forth. Because and you can explain, Christy, like what the ceremony is. I mean, we all go into this maloka, which is like a circular space, circle shaped, and it's like a cool hut basically. And we do it at nighttime, usually at 7 or 8. We're supposed to go into the maloka, right? We haven't eaten for like probably 4 hours, and we are wearing all white, kind of respectful of purity and cleansing, right? And all of us walk in there. We don't talk to anyone. And the shamans have their little altar or table set up with the medicine. So if you want to kind of share what goes on, you know, how the ceremony goes, that would be awesome. I'd like to hear how you would describe it.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, we all come in and sit in a circle. That's the best setup so that our heart feels are energetically connected in a circle. It's best to sit up. Sometimes it can make you feel really sick and you want to lay down. But really, if you sit up, it allows the medicine to really work through you a little bit better. And the chants can just hit you vibrationally and just work on you better. And by all means, if you feel like you need to lay down, lay down. But yeah, so we all sit down, and the beginning of ceremony, you know, they go over just kind of the general rules that, you know, and the Shipibo tradition, you're quiet, you sit to yourself, you don't touch anybody, you don't speak to anybody, because somebody could be really going through a deep part of their process, and interrupting them can be very jarring to their experience. And usually what we do is we go around and we all state our intentions out loud to the room. And it's a really beautiful part of ceremony because, you know, people come from all different walks of life, all different classes, and, you know, social structures. And it's really interesting that everyone really just shows up to work on themselves and be a better version of themselves. And, you know, you meet these people and, you know, we have certain judgments or, against them. And then we sit down and you just realize, oh, we're all here for the same thing. And we're really all the same at the end of the day. And someone or more than one person can have the same intention that you do. And so it's really beautiful to be able to be connected to someone else in ceremony in that way. Different curanderos do it different ways. Sometimes we all drink at the same time, or we go around in a circle and drink, and then the lights go out, and there's a period of silence where, you know, the medicine kind of starts to take effect, and then the chanting starts. And it's really interesting because usually as the chanting starts is when you really start to feel it come on. And that's just a testament to how the songs and the chants carry you through your experience.
And that is so powerful because the shamans are masters. And that's why it's important to work with a reputable shaman, because they are such a master at, what are they called again? Icaros. I should know this. I'm Latin. Icaros, you know, they're singing, but, you know, that's the beauty about like music. You can close your eyes and it could be sung in a different language, and it all has such a different vibrational energy and frequency that you can feel. A good shaman, like after the medicine's been sitting within you, like you're there, like you said, we're all sitting, our eyes are closed. Some of us have our eyes open. And once he starts singing, it's kind of like, it's almost like a ripple effect. One person will purge, like throw up, you know, and then it's like he starts singing, and it's kind of, you get in sync, and then it's like, bam, there goes the next person, there goes the next person, there goes the next person. And everyone's having their different experience. Some people are purging, like throwing up, and my husband, he said he had the taste of blood when he threw up, you know, when he purged. Mine had like, I don't even know what the heck it was, but it was a different type of taste. And it was horrific. It's like I felt like my stomach, like it was just being twisted, and I was like, it was like the most horrific experience. And then it just came out. So that's what the Icaros do with the good shaman who can stimulate. And when it gets a little bit too wild and like people are really just, you know, working through stuff and it gets a little bit too much, it's like they know which songs to sing to kind of bring the frequency or energy of the medicine down. Isn't that amazing?
Like, yeah, wow. It really is. And some of my favorite ceremonies too are curanderos that call you up for an individual chant. I love that when they call you up one by one and you get your one-on-one chant with the curandero. That's really special. And something I wanted to mention too about the purging is a lot of people have an aversion to the idea of sitting in ceremony because they're like, oh, you're vomiting. First of all, we are on a very clean diet before and we fast before. So when you purge, it's not like you're in a room and it just reeks of vomit. You don't smell anything. And that's just part of the courage too, is be vulnerable enough to get sick, you know, in front of somebody. And it's, I mean, and at the end of it, you know, you feel like you've gone through battle with these people. I mean, look at us. Like, it's just at the end of the ceremony week or weekend, you're just like, oh my gosh, you really love these people. You can't believe you met them a couple of days ago or a week ago, and you were just like, you know, just you went through battle together, and it's like a connection that, you know, you've made that you just is beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we call it holding space for one another. It's kind of like, you know, okay, sister, you can cry on my shoulders. I mean, I remember a time even when we were in between ceremonies and we were just all kind of hanging out, and you came and you kind of just came and just sat next to me and put your head on my lap, and here I'm just like, you know, like my daughter, you know, and you know, just you can feel people's energy and love and emotion. So that was really beautiful of that, because, you know, during this time, visions and hallucinations are different. You know, you hallucinate when you're on a drug. You have visions when you're working with ayahuasca. That's totally different. You know, true visions are not the same as hallucinations. There's usually more of some sort of metaphoric meaning to it, you know? So that's the difference. And because a lot of people freak out and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to take, you know, they want to take the DMT and they're like, well, I'm having these hallucinations. When you're working in this type of space, it's more of us having visions. And what was one that really stood out from a lot of this, from, you know, you've done multiple ceremonies. What was one that really stood out to you?
Oh my gosh, there's a couple. I can speak on one that we had on our first trip to Spirit Quest. There was a male being and a female being. The male was blue and the woman was purple, and they're standing in front of like this ornate elevator. It almost looked like Cinderella's carriage, you know, like all this filigree. And it was like an elevator because there was lights going bing, 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 bing at the top. And they were saying, get in, we're going to depart for the stars. And I was like, nope, I was too scared. And I tell that story to some of my friends, and they're so upset that I didn't have the guts to get in. But I was just reading in my journal, preparing for this podcast, of why I didn't. And I put down that I have more work to do before I can step into the elevator. So yeah, and thank you, Linda, for this opportunity, because it was nice to go back in my journal and read where I was at in life, you know, like fraught with anxiety and didn't have good relationships. And it's sweet that you brought up how I cuddled into you, because, you know, I didn't have any real strong female relationships. So it's been so wonderful through these experiences in this community to become connected and have really good friendships, which is something I didn't have 5-6 years ago. So that's been life-changing. Another vision was I was a wolf, and I was like walking through the forest, like on the top of this mountain, and it was a full moon, and I had these like magnetic silver rays of moonlight shining down on me, and purple, and I just was like in the body of the mother wolf, and I could just feel like the majestic likeness of what it felt like to be a wolf walking with your pack family, like out in nature. That was a really interesting one. Yeah. And, you know, another thing to note is these visions that we have, that might not make sense to us. And that's all part of integration. That's why journaling these experiences is so important, because you might not understand what they mean till years later. You know, I love going back and reading in my journal and be like, oh, that's what that meant, you know?
Yeah.
And just to trust, you know, some people do come out of, you know, retreat more confused than when they came in, and that's okay. You know, the integration is super key and important, and just to be you know, gracious and gentle with yourself, and just trust that like Tete tells us, like just trust that it's like chess. There's pieces that are being moved around in the background in your favor that you're not even aware of, but it's happening.
Yes. You know, one of the things that really, why I was so afraid of working with the medicine, the purge can be in different ways. It's not always throwing up, you know, it's not always that way. Some people, it comes out the other end, you know, and you have like no control of that. But I mean, we never experienced that. You know, I haven't experienced that with the people that I've sat with, because you are influenced under the medicine that you cannot walk yourself to the bathroom. So we had helpers. What did we call them? We used to call them the
guardians. Oh yeah, guardians.
Because they would tell us like, okay, if you have to go to the bathroom, raise your hand, or no, well, not even raise your hand, just yell out baño. And one of the you know, the people that were there to help, they usually would be two, and the females, it would be a female and a male, or two females that would take you to your room so you can go to the bathroom so you wouldn't crap on yourself, right? But that was what freaked me out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to shit on myself, you know?
Yeah, I forgot. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a huge fear that people have. And I maybe seen that happen once or twice in my 48 ceremonies like I've sat through. And if you feel like it might happen, it's a concern you have, just put an extra change of clothes next to me or over by the bathroom, or, you know, have that ready. But yeah, and if it happens, it happens, you know?
Yeah. And let it go. So
also other ways you can purge: shaking, yawning, crying is a purge.
Yes.
Yeah. Laughing.
Yeah. There's
one
some
thing I want.
dancing. Some people.
Oh yeah. Sometimes when I start to, because I've learned how to navigate these spaces, you know, a little bit better. So instead of like laying down and trying to fight it, I sit up, or like I'll lean forward and put like on all fours, and I'll just start like moving my body to the music, and just like, moving through the upset stomach, rather than just like, oh, I want this to stop and go away. And I remember my first couple of ceremonies, I didn't purge the first ceremony, and the second ceremony, when I felt the purge coming, I was so scared to purge, because I got the hit that I would move into a new space and I would go to the next level of whatever was happening, you know, and I was so scared. But once I just surrendered and I purged, oh my gosh, that energy, it was like a weight of bricks just was lifted. So, you know, and people get scared when they hear other people purge. It can sound very violent and scary. But now that I know what that is, I get so happy when I hear people purge. I'm like, yeah, get it out, because, you know, once they're done, oh my gosh, it's like you've shed a whole skin and you're just like this new person. It feels so much better. You feel so much lighter.
Yeah. One of the beautiful things about, and I'd like to hear, I'm not sure, you've worked with an all-female shamans. That would be my next thing. That's why I don't feel like I'm being called to return to Spirit Quest, because I really just want to work with an all-female shaman group. And I believe there's the Temple Way of Light in Peru. Is that right? Is that the one you went to?
No, I didn't go to that one. Okay. I haven't.
Because there is one place, and I'll have to look it up, and I've heard a lot of people have great experiences. All the shamans are women, all the helpers are women. And I feel like that would be my kind of place, because as women, we are so loving and we need that nurturing. So I feel like that would be my next thing. One of the things with also, like when you go through ceremonies, it's always best to do like a minimum of 4. Most of these places will have like a minimum of 4 ceremonies done throughout a 7-day process. And after the ceremony, like usually like the day after, because we usually start like at 8 o'clock at night. And then we're usually, some people are done by midnight. Some people are done by 1 o'clock. Some people go to bed and the medicine is still working on them the next morning. And everybody is so different, and you're a different person. I mean, you feel like you have been stripped of your ego. And it's like, honey, if you came here with an ego, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So much ego work. Yeah. I remember when I showed up to Spirit Quest, you know, and working in the Vegas environment, I was very all about my looks, and I just had a very strong sexual presence. And I remember, I can't remember the name of the woman that had the short red hair. But anyways, yeah, she had made a comment about it. And after the first couple of ceremonies, I had shed a lot of that and just was able to, I was trying so hard all the time to get that kind of attention, and just realizing how unbecoming that really was. And once I was able to really let that go and lead more naturally with my heart, then that was like, I really started to embrace like true beauty and sexiness, and that divine feminine is how I should phrase that divine feminine energy in a graceful and beautiful way, and how much more attractive and becoming that is. And when I was able to kind of energetically put myself in that space, I was able to start attracting a different kinds of energy and people to me that was much more in alignment for my highest.
Yeah. And the beauty of these ceremonies too is, like you said, during this time, everything is controlled, what we eat. So our diet is pristine. Everybody loses weight. I mean, it's not there. We don't go there for weight loss, but everybody loses weight, anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds. My husband lost like 7 or 8 pounds, you know, but he still ate a lot, but our diets were super clean. And usually like the day after the ceremony, I mean, we all wake up at different times, and then we go to we go out to the outdoor patio where they would serve us our breakfast, and, you know, we would order what we wanted. It was usually always eggs and a little bit of fruit. And everybody would wake up at a different time. And some people would wake up and it looked like they got run over by a truck because they would be swollen, they'd be red. Others would wake up and just wake up with a smile on their face. I remember waking up, and one of my experiences took me back to when I was in high school with my husband. And the depth of it was like I was reliving like our senior year. It was really interesting, but what was shown to me during that time was the depth of the love that he had for me. And it made me cry, because it was just like, this dude really loves me. Wow. But it was freaking amazing. But then there was another one where it was about the death of my mother and my father. And I cried on that one. It's just like, no, because I'm so grateful. Like, I still have my parents now. And I have amazing parents. You know, I can't even imagine my life without my mom. I can't even go there. But in the ceremony, I saw that and I cried because it was for me so real. And I just bawled and I bawled and I cried. I mean, the next morning, my face was so swollen from crying so much. But there was also another message that was given to me during that time. When I had that about my mom, and the message for me was like, you need to woman up and step up and be the woman you're supposed to be, because being the only daughter, and I'm getting a little personal here, but and having 5 brothers, you know, it's kind of like, oh, she's the princess in the family. She gets a lot of what she wants. I've always kind of had a little bit more favor in that respect. Like, everyone always watched out for me. My brothers, I was like the special gem, because I'm the only girl, right? So I wasn't always playing full out in my life. And that was one of the messages that was shown, like, you know, you need to step into your own shoes and be the person you're supposed to be. So it was really, I cried a lot, and it showed me other things that I didn't like, so it's a really, it's something that when you go and you work with the medicine, just receive. Well, as John Howard would say, the one, just the fact that you're there tells you you're courageous. You just have to have a little bit of courage, just go. People are going to hold space, and you are going to feel so much love and the depth of love, not only from the shamans, but the community that's there. Gosh, that just fills you up. And if you can just feel that and just really resonate with that, oh my gosh. That's why when we have our conversations, or I have my conversations with some of my other soul sisters that have gone there, it just takes me back to like, man, this is what love is. This is the frequency of love. It's not a sexual love. It's just such a deep love that it's like, I want to always feel that way. And I always want to give that way. So that's just like, it's amazing. It's just like
to come and be connected to everyone and just feel so loved and held and so safe. It just really like it Reenlivens you. And if you ever had any doubt of, and it's easy to get overwhelmed by the darkness and the sadness in the world, but when we are able to go into these places and spaces, we remember what that love feels like, and that we either never had or that we forgot. So to get back in touch with that is great. One thing I wanted to touch on was, I forgot. Sorry.
Well, if you remember,
we were talking about right before then. We were talking about.
I was just sharing about the message that, one of the messages I got, because, the day after we do our ceremonies. Oh, one more thing we should probably mention before we close up here. I think one of the best things about the ceremony, my experience will speak to other people, and your experience is just not for you. It's for other people during our talking circle the day after, or 2 days after our ceremony.
Those are almost just, we call it the second ceremony. It can be just as healing as the actual ceremony itself. And then you're able to resonate with someone else's experience, and they can come up to you after, and you can talk it out and help each other through it.
Yeah.
I remember what I was going to mention was in ceremonies sometimes, like you were talking about your mother and your family, ayahuasca will show you things that aren't necessarily true to motivate you to do something. She told me that my dad was going to die, and that I was like, oh my gosh, like there's some conversations I need to have with him before he dies. And it wasn't that he was going to die. It was just she wanted to get me to understand the importance and urge me to have conversations with my father.
That's interesting that you say that, because that did happen.
She's a trickster.
What's that?
She'll trick you. She's a trickster.
But it sometimes comes out in a different way than you think it is too, because I remember this couple that was there, this young couple, and I think it was for our first ceremony that they were there, the first time, our first trip to Peru. And she was just in tears because she said, I worked with the medicine and it showed me that this, and one of the things was that this person wasn't going to be having a family, and that just tore her apart. Well, fast forward a few years later, I mean, she is a mama now, she's got a little girl. So, sometimes we don't always understand everything. And I think the hardest part when we are there, we're leaving such a beautiful, sacred space. The hardest part, we can mention this before we finish up here. I think the hardest part is the integration, because when you experience something like this, you come back to this world, and the vibrational frequency in this world is so like not all love the way we have been surrounded by it. And our intellect and our mind and our spirit, our heart just haven't gone through that integration and connection. So it could be hard coming back to the world that we see today, because it's like, man, this is a really effed up place. There's so much hate. There's so much crime. There's so much jealousy. There's so much of all this negative crap, So it's almost because we've experienced such a beautiful contrast of what love, compassion, really wanting to help other people, and then to come to a world where it's like, buy this so you can feel this, wear this, you can do this, drink this wine. So, it's all about selling you on something that is supposed to make you happy that's outside, but everything really is inside. So I think the integration has been the hardest part for a lot of people. And I'd like for you to tell, what you would tell people with integrating back into it, after 40 ceremonies, especially. And for me, I mean, after all these ceremonies, even now, for me, I think the most important part of integration was, one, journaling, but two, really continue to do the work of just me being a better version of me, and knowing that I get to create whatever reality I want. And just because somebody else doesn't agree with me, that's okay. This is my world. This is my book. This is my story. And I'm going to tell it as big as I want it. And I'm not going to let other people's opinions of me really impact who I am.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well said. And yeah, so my suggestion would be, my advice is just, if you make a certain connection with someone that, in ceremony, to stay in contact with that person. I mean, look at you and I, 5-6 years later, we're still integrating together.
Yes.
And there's also people out there that specialize in integration coaching. So they're definitely out there where you can stay in contact, and they can help you make sense of your experiences, and
Definitely.
guide you gently through your following weeks and months and years, for sure.
And I think the work never stops. Working on self never stops. I think it's just it's a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong process. And that's the beauty of it.
Once you know, you can't unknow. Sorry to interrupt you.
And once you know what were you saying?
Once you know, you can't unknow.
Yeah. Exactly. Once you've kind of, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks, once you've crossed that river of change, it's just like, do you really want to go back to that? I kind of like to live in the world of certainty of uncertainty at times, where is the certainty of certainty is like, well, if I continue in this relationship that's bad for me, I'm certain that it's going to continue to be bad, versus if I go into the uncertainty of possibly leaving a relationship because it's not good for me, but there's an uncertainty out there that I'm probably going to get something better, but I'm kind of scared because I don't know how I'm going to get it, but it's the contrast, and it'll just unfold. So really, in closing, I would tell people that you'll know when the calling comes. You'll work with the right shaman. I really believe that a minimal of 4 to 5 sessions really is what a person needs to do to really get the maximal benefit of that, and in just making sure that you're in a safe place to work with it. What about you? What are your thoughts? Your closing thoughts on that?
Yeah. Bravery and courage are always rewarded.
Yeah, definitely. So. All right, my dear. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I hope that Samantha gets to go. We've gone to, I love Spirit Quest. I'll put a few other ones here. There's Rythmia. A lot of people, Rythmia is more, that one's in Costa Rica. I know Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul, he goes there quite a bit. That's more of like a resorty retreat type of thing, where you really get a lot of extra pleasure from going there. Whereas where we went, it was like, you're there to work with the medicine. I mean, we had clean rooms and everything, but Rythmia is more like, oh, you get to do massage, you get to do yoga, you get, all inclusive. So, and then the Temple of the Way of the Light, I believe, is another one. So we'll put a few more on there, and that way people who are interested, they'll know where they're supposed to go. So,
and also, Linda, if you wanted to add in my contact info or email for anyone that wanted to reach out to me and had any further questions, I would love to be there for them.
Yes, absolutely. We'll have that on here too. So, all righty. Well, thank you so much, Christy. Always
thank
such
you, Linda.
Pleasure to just, just for us to just chat and just connect. We always have such a fun time, and we just
We'll have to do it again.
Yes, but we always talk about the possibilities, and that's what life's about, and being limitless, and it helps you to get in that, unlimited space. So, all righty. We'll see you all next week. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.